Farming in the Dust Bowl During the Great Depression by ushistory.org and the Library of Congress, adapted by News ELA staff. Agricultural Adjustment Administration is formed. The government tried to help. The Agricultural Adjustment Administration, AAA, was created to help farmers sell their goods at fair prices. One method of driving up prices is to limit supply. Simply put, if farmers grew less, the prices of their crops and livestock would increase due to increase in demand. The AAA identified 7 basic farm products: wheat, cotton, corn, tobacco, rice, hogs, and milk. Farmers who produced these goods would be paid by the AAA to farm less. Also, the AAA decided that some crops were to be buried and thousands of pigs slaughtered. Not everyone thought this was a good idea, since many people at the time were poor and starving. Still, the AAA helped increase prices and pull farmers out of the poverty they were in as prices for cotton, wheat, and corn doubled in 3 years. However, the benefits did not reach the poorest farmers. Farmers who didn't own the land they worked on did not receive government aid. Crop prices weren't the only problem, though. At the same time, farmers were also up against an environmental crisis. Great Plains and severe drought. Between 1930 and 1940, the southwestern Great Plains region of the United States suffered a severe drought. The crisis became known as the Dust Bowl. In 1862, Congress passed the Homestead Act, which encouraged Americans to move west. Huge numbers of settlers started making their way across the country to the treeless plains of the West. Most of the settlers farmed their land or grazed cattle. The farmers plowed the prairie grasses and planted wheat. This eventually killed off the prairie grasses and the land became bare. When a drought came in 1930, the overfarmed and overgrazed land began to blow away. Winds whipped across the plains, raising billowing clouds of dust. The sky could darken for days, and even well-sealed homes could end up with a thick layer of dust on the furniture. In some places, the dust drifted like snow, covering farm buildings and houses. The crisis affected 19 states in the heartland of the United States. With no chance of making a living, farm families abandoned their homes and land in these areas and fled further westward. In all, 400,000 people left the Great Plains. In his 1939 book, The Grapes of Wrath, author John Steinbeck described the flight of some of these families. They streamed over the mountain hungry and restless as ants, scurrying to find work to do, to lift, to push, to pick, to cut. Anything, any burden to bear, for food. The kids are hungry. We got no place to live, like ants scurrying for work, for food, and most of all, for land. The other problems with the Great Plains. The drought was just part of the problem. Another worry for Dust Bowl farmers was that after years of planting crops like wheat, the soil in many areas was no longer good for farming. The Soil Conservation and Domestic Allotment Act paid farmers to plant clover and alfalfa instead of wheat and corn. These crops helped restore the soil. At the same time, the government achieved its goal of reducing the amount of land farmers were using to grow crops they couldn't sell for much. Another major problem faced by American farmers had to do with mortgages. A mortgage is a loan to help a family buy a home. Families pay them back bit by bit every month. It was becoming harder for farmers to keep up with their monthly payments, and many ended up having their lands taken by the banks that had lent them money. Across the Corn Belt of the Midwest, the situation grew desperate. Farmers pooled money together to bail out friends. Minnesota and North Dakota passed laws restricting farm foreclosures. In Le Mars, Iowa, an angry mob almost beat a foreclosing judge to death in April 1933. President Franklin Roosevelt wanted to stop the madness. He signed the Farm Credit Act in 1933, which helped farmers avoid foreclosures. Another new law helped farmers buy back lost land. While these laws and government programs helped ease some of the burdens on American farmers in the 1920s and 30s, times were still tough. America would not fully recover from the Great Depression until the 1940s.